be focusing on the Osun elections. Yes, it's come, it's gone. The winner's been declared, and that's what we'll start off with. We're going over to our Abuja studios where Ismael Ahmed joins us today. He is a member of the All Progressive Congress. Morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, most of them still in Osun celebrating this victory. You have to be happy with this one, aren't you?
Absolutely. It's a fantastic time for democracy, and it's a fantastic time for every progressive all across the country who is interested in seeing that democracy grows and progresses in this country. So it's a wonderful time for us, and I think for Nigerians, but most especially for the people of the state of Osun.
But in spite of this victory, before now, there was that talk about the deployment of security, how there were fears. Do you think any of that view, or has it changed for you now after the results have been declared?
I think we prepared well. I think it is a real concern. I was in Osun for about 6 days. And I know that movement were restricted, a lot of things were done, and there was over-militarization of the whole state. But I think after the Ekiti experience, the people of Osun and the people of Nigeria in general understood that they would have to stand up for what is rightly theirs and then protect their freedom to exercise their franchise. And I think that spirit contributed in what happened yesterday. So yes, there was over-militarization, there was harassment, there was an attempt to intimidate voters, but I think the constant calling that we've had on people to make sure that they stay on message, they remain focused, they remain inundated with a lot of intimidation. I think it worked out well, and it turned out to be so well for us.
What would you say had the most impact for you? Because, I mean, a lot of people would say that it would seem that the APC was raising some false alarm before the elections. Didn't they all turn out to be false after all? I
don't think it was false alarm at all. I mean, still, even at that level, we saw a lot of some of our national leaders were arrested and harassed at the eve of the election. So it was no false alarm. We just had to say it out the way it is so that people would know exactly what was going on in Osun, and that helped a lot, I guess.
Were they arrested just for the sake of being arrested, or they had done something that, put them under some suspicion?
Well, the reports we had was some of them were picked up in front of the government house. I mean, what could they possibly do that would warrant them to be arrested like that? Most of them were hounded, and we saw that in Ekiti, and we thought they were not going to repeat it in Osun, but they attempted to, albeit not as much as they did in Ekiti, but then they did.
You talked about
so I'm not sure they did anything wrong. We didn't do anything wrong.
On the day of the elections, did the security men stand in the way of the voters in any way?
Well, some of the places that I had visited, there was the whole idea was to intimidate voters. And I knew that the conversation going on at the previous night before the election day was that there are going to be a lot of security forces, and people were afraid that there were going to be shots fired or tear gas thrown at them. But, people were encouraged not to be intimidated, not to be deterred by all that, and not to be harassed. And then people came out, and at the end of the day, the security forces gave way, and then freedom to vote was exercised fully. So I would answer you no, there was no direct interference in some of the places that I had visited.
If you say that, voters were going to be intimidated, it will mean that voters across board, because, I mean, generally, one would think that voters don't want to lose their lives. And if things should get violent, if shots are going to be fired, the shots are not going to discriminate as to whether or not they are PDP or APC or Labour Party supporters. So if we're talking about voters being intimidated, one would think that that will be a crossboard, don't you think?
Yes, I would think so in an ideal situation. But we know that one of the biggest forms of rigging is to make sure that people don't come out so that other people will get to vote for them. And I mean, this is Osun State. You cannot get any APC than that.
The question will be,
so we're talking
how
about
feasible is that?
80%,
How feasible is that,
90%
considering
APC
all the
voters.
checks and mechanisms that INEC has put in place in recent times?
I don't know if INEC has anything to do with security. They're just supposed to be electoral empires.
The question, I'm trying to, make a point in terms of, you say that, if people don't come out to vote, it means that other people will vote for them. How feasible is it, how possible is it that other people will vote with the new mechanism that has been put in place by INEC?
What new mechanism did INEC put in place? I didn't see anything. This new mechanism that is used today, on last Saturday in Osun, was the same thing that was used in 2011, and we knew a lot of vote rigging took place. I mean, you can never tell how rigging is going to take place. You just have to take all the appropriate measures to make sure that you're ahead of the game, especially if you have the right percentage of voters.
So, sorry, would you say that INEC hasn't made any improvements from 2011 then? Is that what you're saying?
No. By the election, I don't know, but I know that we won the election convincingly, and that has more to do with the voters that came out and withstood whatever kind of intimidation and stood and defended their votes and casted their votes and made sure that it was announced right, much more than anything that INEC did. I will still commend INEC. They may have done, they may have improved. I'm yet to see it. I'm waiting for general election. This is an isolated election. I'm waiting for the general election when it's going to go across 36 states and the FCT.
So
not until then would I be absolutely convinced that INEC has done anything to improve the situation from 2011.
You spoke about 2011 and how there was rigging, and the same thing happened here in terms of the mechanisms, processes for INEC. So was there rigging in these elections?
Well, I personally, if you're asking me, I think I'm shocked that honestly that the PDP got 292,000 votes. I'm shocked because I was in Osun for about 6 days, and I have seen the palpable love that was coming out from the people toward the governor. I mean, it's nothing I've ever seen before. And believe me, I've seen my share of cult-like followership of political leaders, especially from my state of Kano and the northern Nigeria in particular. But what I've seen in Osun in the last 1 week coming from the people was like something I've never seen before. So I'm still in shock that PDP got 292,000 votes. Maybe they were just trying to bridge the gap. But for whatever it is worth, we won the election, and I'm happy. I think that's what is important.
Okay, well, in Ekiti, the same security was deployed, and the APC said they've gone to court about the processes that went on about the elections. Are they going to go to court as well this time because the same thing played out for this Osun elections?
I think the people who have been harassed ought to take the cases to court, because we cannot allow, as progressives, as Nigerians, as citizens in this country, we cannot allow this level of harassment and intimidation just because someone wants to go out and exercise his franchise of choosing his leader. I think it is absolutely unacceptable. I think those people who are harassed should take it up in the courts of law.
You said you won the elections fair and square. Did you win because you were ahead of the game?
I think the Oshunites in particular, the election was more of a referendum about the last 3.5 years of Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, and no any other consideration was necessary. I mean, I have seen the kind of emotional communications between the voters and the governor. You can't fake that. You can't supplant it. You can't rig that. You cannot suppress that. So that was an absolute show of determination and loyalty from the people to a governor that they supremely believe in.
In your opinion, would you describe this election as free and fair? I
wouldn't call it fair because a lot of people were harassed, especially on the part of APC. but a lot of people voted freely.
Can
there be an improvement on that? Absolutely.
Well, there's this question from Egwando Tone who says, why is it always a free and fair election and victory for APC when they win and massive rigging if PDP wins?
Because there is a presumption that the instruments of rigging are usually the instruments under the authority of the federal government. That is the military, INEC, and the police. So whenever an opposition government anywhere wins an election against this supposedly instruments of rigging and instruments of coercion, then it is said that something had happened which is right. So it is not as if it's only APC. When other opposition political parties win elections against all odds, against the ruling authority at that time, it would be said that there's some level, an appreciable level of fairness and freedom. That's just it. It's not just about APC versus PDP. It's about a very young democracy where the federal authorities usually use the federal institutions to suppress the freedom and the right of the people to choose their leaders. So when people who are in the opposing side get to have the day, the presumption is that something somewhere was done right.